So hi everyone, this is Mayank and today we are going to revise the entire chapter of corporate valuation. Chapter number 12 and chapter number 13 are related to each other, so please pay careful attention. This is going to be the small chapter. We are going to revise all the theory topics and then the practical questions of the same. Corporate valuation, question number 1, why there is a need for the valuation? Why there is a need for the enterprise value? Why there is a need for the chapter, this entire chapter? Obviously we are going to do the corporate valuation, we are going to calculate the value of the companies, but before that it is very important to understand why there is a need for that, and the 5 answers that you have to write, 5 top points that you have to write in exam if this question comes for 4 marks is: first of all, it is required for the purpose of information to the internal stakeholder, debt holders who are investing in the company, equity holders who are investing in the company, preference shareholders who are investing in the company. It's all about their money. So yes, for all of these 3 stakeholders, the valuation of the company is very important. The second thing is comparison with the similar enterprise. Obviously, see, if similar field can be taken, let's say IT companies, so on one side you can consider TCS, on another side you can consider Infosys. When you calculate the value of the company, you can at least understand that which company is bigger than the other company. So valuation helps for the comparison of the similar enterprises. Valuation helps for the future public listing. If there is a private limited company, let's say for example Conference private limited, so Conference next private limited, right now it is, if it does well, if it goes well, everything goes well, so in future we may come up with the IPO. In such a case, valuation of the company is very important. The fourth thing is the strategic planning. Strategic planning means, in order to, if we have surplus cash, where we can deploy it, and all these answers can be given if we know the value of the company. And the last thing is ballpark pricing. Ballpark pricing means approximate acquisition value of the company. This is approximate acquisition value. So this is not the exact value, but this is going to be the price, the value at which the other companies may be interested in buying this company. So this is called as ballpark pricing. 5 answers: internal stakeholders, comparison, the third thing is future public listing, fourth thing is strategic planning, and the last thing is ballpark pricing. So these are the 5 reasons. Next comes, what are the various terms associated with the valuation? This is not for the exam, but it is good for the understanding, because based on these concepts you are going to solve the questions. The first concept was the concept of the present value of the cash flows. One of the method that you are going to discuss is, you are going to see in the coming time, is the present value of cash flows. In order to calculate the corporate value of the company depends upon the future cash flows, present value of future cash flows specifically. Then comes the concept of internal rate of return, then comes the return on investment. Both of these are different. Then comes the perpetual growth rate. This is a concept that we have learned in time value of money in CA foundation. You might have learned again this in capital budgeting in CA inter, again in CA final in security valuation chapter, perpetual growth rate. And the fifth thing is the terminal value. Terminal value is a value at the end of the project or end of the company. If you are shutting down the company, if you are selling the company, or if you are continuing all the operations, then that the present value of all those operations. Terminal value is the last price at which you will close the business. Close the business in terms of selling it to someone else, or we can say perpetual future cash flows also. So terminal value is calculated at the end of the project. So let's say for example, if the cash flows for 5 years are given, then perpetual cash flows are given from 6th year to unlimited time. Unlimited means there is no expiry date. So the terminal value can be calculated at the end of 5th year based on the present value of the future cash flows. So this is going to be the terminal value. Yeah, the most important part of this chapter is these 4 methods. That's it. These 4 methods covers almost 95% of the questions. What methods are used in the corporate valuation? There are 4 different types of methods used in the corporate valuation. The first one is the asset-based valuation model. Asset-based valuation model takes into consideration net assets minus net liabilities, or we can say net assets is equal to total assets minus total liabilities. So that will give you the value of the company. This is called as book value of the company because you are considering the total assets and total liabilities from the book, right? But please understand that all these assets and liabilities will be adjusted. All these assets and liabilities will be adjusted for any kind of additional information. For example, if there is some fixed assets in the assets worth, let's say 200 crore, but it can be realized at 250 crore. So 250 crore should be taken in the total asset, not the book value of 200 crore. Understood? If there is any kind of a contingent liability which is not there in the total liabilities, obviously, so that should also be taken in the total liabilities. What I want to say is take the real value, economic value of the assets and liabilities while calculating the value of the company based on the asset valuation model. Next is the earning based valuation model. What you do in the earning based valuation model, if you want to calculate the value of the company, you take the earning after taxes divided by the cost of equity. So this will give you equity value. Okay. But if you want to calculate the value of the firm, then you take the EBIT. You can take EBIT 1 minus tax. So this is an earnings for debt holders as well as equity holders, and then you divide it with overall cost of capital, which is the cost of debt holders as well as equity holders. This gives you value of the company or firm. This gives you value of equity. So understand the difference between the formula and what results we derive from that. Okay, so both of these are called as earnings capitalization. Both of these are earnings. It depends upon earning is for debt and equity or only for equity. If it is only for equity, divided with cost of equity. If it is for debt and equity, divided with cost of capital. Both are called as earnings capitalization method. The next is enterprise value. The entire thing about this has been discussed in security valuation chapter. No questions are there in corporate valuation, and we have not discussed the same in this chapter as well because the concept is same. Enterprise value model, security valuation, please go through that. Then comes the major part, the difficult part, you can say, cash flow based valuation model. What happens in this case, we can calculate value of the firm and we can calculate value of the equity also based on the cash flows. Now understand. Let's go to this point. Yeah, you remember this? We have discussed all these things. Value of the firm can be calculated based on the present value of future cash flows. You can see FCFF, 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 and then we calculated the terminal value at the end of year 5. And how did we calculate the terminal value? FCFF divided by overall cost of capital minus growth, KO minus growth. Present value of all the future cash flows will give you value of the firm. Then you can deduct the value of debt from that. You will get the value of equity. Another approach to calculate value of the equity is this: present value of the future cash flows to equity. This approach and this approach is same. The only thing is, if you are calculating value of the equity, take the free cash flows to equity. If you are calculating value of the firm, take the free cash flows to firm. Simple. So this is called as cash flow based valuation model. Okay. See, EBITDA. You can calculate the value of the company based on EBITDA also. Now you will raise a question that, sir, just now you said that this can also be the formula, EBITDA 1 minus tax divided by cost of capital, and the formula here is different. Yes, it is different and it gives you different values, but both are correct. It depends upon you whether you want to calculate the value of the company after tax or whether you want to calculate the value of the company before tax, depreciation and amortization. That only difference is this: both will give you value of the companies only. Whichever method you use in exam, if nothing is given in exam, you should give a note that we have calculated value of the company before tax, depreciation and amortization, or value of the company after tax. Simple. Then comes enterprise value model. EV is equal to market value of the common stock plus preferred equity plus value of the debt. Equity, debt, preference shares, market value of all these three, then plus add minority interest and then deduct the cash and investment. Basically, you are not just calculating the value of the equity in enterprise value. You also calculate that after acquiring this company, what all the payments and liabilities and assets will be there on your side in cash. So what are the methods to calculate the cost of equity? We have learned this in the portfolio management chapter. Capital asset pricing model. Cost of equity can be calculated based on this: RF plus beta in bracket RM minus RF, right? And arbitrage theory is just the plural model of CAPM. RF plus beta 1 lambda 1 beta 2 lambda 2 and so on. However, we have not used the arbitrage pricing theory in the corporate valuation chapter. Then comes the geared and ungeared beta. This is covered in IFM. You will get that in the IFM, International Financial Management chapter. We have considered this concept entirely in the previous chapter. I will shift. Then comes the valuation, relative valuation. I will explain this concept at the end. Yeah, economic value added. We have discussed this also. I think let's first discuss the questions based on those three methods mostly: asset based valuation, earning based valuation, and free cash flow method. Have a look. Yeah, this was the first question. If you have read this question, I'm not going to discuss the entire question in this revision video. So this is the question which asks you to calculate the value of equity based on the fair value method. And what was the approach or formula of fair value? It is the average of net asset value method and earnings capitalization method. The weightage of 3 and 1 was given to these. See, 1 and 3, not 3 and 1, it is 1 and 3. The weightage was given in such a manner. So you will calculate weighted average of net asset value and earnings capitalization method. Have a look on the answer. See, first what you did is you calculated the net asset value of both the companies, H Limited and B Limited. Total assets minus total liabilities, and you will realize that total liability includes 300 crore or lakhs crores of contingent liability which was not given in the balance sheet. So that's what I said in the beginning, that you have to consider all the assets and liability, all the additional information also in assets and liabilities. So what we did is we first calculated the net asset value of both the companies, then we calculated the earnings, then we calculated the value of both the companies again using earnings capitalization method. This was the profit after tax, and you can clearly see that if it is a profit after tax, that means this profit is only for the equity shareholder. That's why we have divided it by the cost of equity. The more appropriate formula for this is profit after tax minus preference dividend divided by cost of equity. If there is a preference shares in the company, you should deduct preference dividend from profit after tax. The logic is the numerator should be the profit for equity shareholder, the denominator should be the cost for equity shareholder. That's it. We calculated the value of the company based on this. Then what we did is we calculated the fair value fair value of both the companies. We assigned a weight of 1 to 1000 net asset value and 3 to 3750 the earnings capitalization method, and divided it by 4. Why 4? Because 1 is the weight here, 3 is the weight there. Total weight is 4. So 1 by 4, 3 by 4. This is called as weighted average. 3062.50 is the fair value of the first company. 101.625 is the fair value of the second company. Then we divided it with the number of share. We calculated the number of share. Then we divided it with the number of share, and we got the fair value per share. This is also the fair value, but this is fair value in totality, and this is fair value per share. That's it. This is what the question asked us. Then based on the fair value, they said that if one company is acquiring another company, then what should be the exchange ratio? What we did is just divided the fair value, 875, 156 in the numerator, the target company. This company, the second company was acquired. B Limited was acquired by H Limited. So H Limited's value and B Limited's value have been taken. 156 divided by 875, and that's 0.1787. That's it. This was question number 1. Next, question number 2. Question number 2 asked you to calculate the value of the company again value of the company, and that too range of valuation, means two different range, upper limit and lower limit. And they did not give you how to calculate it. They did not tell you what should be the method. You have to read the question and understand that what should be the method. In that question, it is clearly, it can be clearly seen that only two methods can be applied. One was the market value approach. So based on market value, what we did is we calculated, we took the market price per share and then multiplied it with the number of share. We got the market value of the company, 600 crore. Now you will understand that this method was not given in the syllabus, but still it can be used. So that is the range of valuation. Yeah, where was I? In this question, two methods are given. Market value was the first basis and the discounted cash flows was the second basis. Why the cash flows was the second basis? Because the cash flows for the next 3 years were given in the question. So what we did is we calculated the present value of the cash flows of the next 3 years. That became the value of the company. So there are two values of the company in this, 600 and 747.15. Let me start the accessibility zoom on. Yeah, so this was the first value based on market value. This was the second value based on the discounted cash flows. Then they said range of valuation. So range has a limit, na? Upper limit, lower limit, or we can say highest value, lowest value. So the lowest value was 600 crores and the highest value was 747.15. So this is going to be the limit. Basically, we calculated this so that both the companies can decide and finalize one value for the acquisition, which will be in between these two. That's why it is called as range. Come out to the question number 3. Question number 3 and question number 4 are almost same. What happened in this is, in this question, the profit after tax was 77 lakh was given to you. And then they said that there are two extraordinary items of income and expense were included. Okay. Then they gave you one additional detail regarding the new project, sales, material cost, labors and fixed cost. And in the end, they asked you to calculate the value of the business, given that the capitalization rate is 14%. When they clearly says that you have to calculate the value of the business using this capitalization rate, that means we have to use the earnings capitalization method. Which other method is there which says that you have to use, like, do you think any other data is given in the question which will help us to calculate the value of the company using a different method? No, sir. Net assets are not given, total assets, total liabilities are not given, future cash flows are also not given, enterprise value details are not given. The only method left is the earnings capitalization method. So we calculated the proper earning after tax. We adjusted the existing earning. So what we did, first we took the given earning, 77 lakhs. Okay, then we converted the profit after tax into profit before tax, and then we adjusted these two items, extraordinary income and extraordinary expense, and then we arrived at existing profit from ordinary business. We took ordinary business. Extraordinary should not be taken. For the future, this is not going to happen. Why we deduct and reduce this? Income was deducted because it was added earlier. Expense was added because it was deducted earlier. So we have basically given a nil impact in the profit. Then we took the profit from ordinary business and we added the profit also of the new business, which is 28 lakhs or crores, whatever it is. Then this was the total profit before tax, 112 and 28. But this is profit before tax. Government also has a stake in it. So government will, let's pay to the government 42 at 30%, and this is called as the profit after tax, future maintainable profit after tax. Then this profit is applicable or can be claimed by both equity shareholder and preference shareholders if there is a preference shares in the company. And that's why we considered the cost of capital also as 14%, which is for equity and preference. Okay. We capitalize this earning, 98 divided by 14% is the final formula. We got the value of the business as asked by the question. If you consider no preference, then this 98 becomes the profit of the equity and this 14% becomes the cost of equity. And again, the answer will still be the same. there was a second part in this question. They said to calculate the market price per equity share. Okay, we can calculate that, but they gave some information. Capital being comprised of 1,13% preference shares of rupees 100 each and 50 lakhs equity shares of rupees 10 each, and the PE ratio was 10 times. It can be clearly said from the question that we can calculate the market price using one simple method called as EPS multiplied by profit PE ratio. Why? See, first of all, they have given the PE ratio. What is the method to calculate the market price using PE ratio? EPS multiplied by PE ratio, right? So what we did is we took the EPS, adjusted EPS, 98 lakhs. Then we deducted the preference dividend from that. Then what we arrived at was the profit for equity shareholders only. Why this was necessary? Because we have to calculate the market price, and the formula should be EPS multiplied by PE ratio, and EPS should be the earnings per share to equity shareholder. Because market price is also of equity shareholder, EPS should also be of equity shareholder, and for that purpose we had to deduct the preference dividend. We deducted that. Profit after tax for equity was 85, then we divided it with the number of share, we arrived at the EPS multiplied by P ratio will be the market price. That's it. Question number 4. Question number 4 I am not discussing because it is the same as the question number 3. So let's check it. Then comes question number 5. Question number 5, question number 6, question number 7. One and the same thing. Out of 3 we solved 2 in the class, and I gave the last one I think for homework. What is the story about these 3 questions are? A valuation was done for the company and it was a wrong value. See, we calculated the value of the company as 500 and then we said that this is a wrong value. Why? It was based on the future cash flows, but we found that the book values of debt and equity were taken. Instead, we should have taken the market value of the debt and equity, but we did not do that. We took the book values, and that's why the question asks you to find out the correct value of the company. Okay, based on the data given, what we did is we took the wrong value first. This is question number 5. Yeah, here. See, value of the business. According to Gordon's growth model, we took the wrong value first, which is 500 crore, and we found that what was the cost of capital that we used. Okay, KO was unknown. We found the cost of capital. Then we used the cost of capital in WACC formula, and we found that what was the weights that we had taken, because these weights are book value weights as given in the question. So what was the book value weights? 50-50%. That's it. These were the book value weights. Logically speaking, we had started, original story was, we had started with this step and then with this step and then we arrived at 500. But the weights 50-50 was at the beginning itself was wrong, and that's why the entire answer was wrong. Now what we have to do is we have to make the correction. In the question it is clearly given that the market value of equity is 3 times the book value, and the book value weight was 50%. So we took the market value weight as 3 into 0.50, that is 1.5. And the value of the debt in market was equal to the book value. So it was all simple, 1 into 0.50 because it was equal. And now this is our market value weights. 1.5 out of 2 is the market value of equity. 0.5 out of 2 is the book value of the equity. So 75, 1.5 out of 2 is the 75% and 25%. Now these are the final market value weights which we should have used. We did not use that in the previous calculation. Now we are going to use it. So again calculate the WACC using the correct weights, market value weights. We derived 10.50%. Now we use the same cost of capital here in the same formula and we arrived at the correct value of the company, because the cost of capital means the expectation of the shareholder has increased and we may not be able to fulfill that at the same level of cash flows. That's why the value of the company came down from 500 to 363.64 lakh. This is the correct value of the company. Simple. See, wrong value of the business was given. We calculated the wrong WACC based on that. Based on that, we calculated the book value of the weights. We took the book value of weights and converted them into market value weights, which are the correct weights. With the help of that, we calculated the correct WSCC and then we calculated the correct value of the business. The same thing was done in the question number 6 also. So I'm skipping this question as well. The process is same. Question number 6, 7, all of them are same. Now comes the question number 8, and you will realize there are two methods. It is as good as question number 1, almost same. So all the data is given in the question and they asked us to calculate the value of the business. First of all, calculate the total value of the business, and in the question itself they have given that the value of the business should be the average of discounted cash flows and net asset value. So first you calculate the value of the business using net asset value method, then using discounted cash flow method, and then average out. You will get the first answer. Then number of share to be issued to AB Limited. See, first we will calculate this. So first we use the discounted cash flow method. We took year cash flows given in the question, present value factor at 8%, present value, and this is the discounted cash flow method value. Then comes the net asset value, which is 250. So this is discounted, this is net asset, and this is average. Discounted plus net asset divided by 2, this is average. Cool. Now this much is the value of the company that we are planning to buy. So basically we have to pay this much to the other company, and there are two modes of payment. First, I will show you. We are buying this XY company. We are AB company in this question and we want to buy this company. We did the valuation of this company. The final valuation came down to 421.20 lakhs. Okay. There were two options. Since this company will be merged in this, we have to pay to the shareholders of XY Limited how much? 421.20. And there were two options. Either we can pay cash, we can pay cash, or we will pay equity. In this question, it is clearly said that we are going to pay equity shares of our own company to the shareholders of this company. Simple. Now, if we are paying equity shares of our own company, we have to decide the price of our share also. That means we will assume that we have paid this much, whatever the price is, if we are giving one share to these people. So in the question, it is given that the average price should be taken, which was 500 rupees. AB Limited's average price, highest plus lowest, divided by 2 was 500. If you are issuing one share to these shareholder, that means you have given 500 rupees to them. So 421.20 is the total value which we should give. 500 rupees can be given in one share. So this divided by this was the number of share that we should issue to these shareholder. So that's what the calculation that we made here. 421.20 divided by 500, and that came down to 84,240 shares. Cool. Now comes the basis of allocation. They said how you are going to divide 84,240 shares, because in this company XY there are two different types of shareholders. One is 20 lakhs equity shareholders which paid only 10 rupees. So total payment by them is 200, and the another category of equity shareholder is 10 lakh which only paid 5 rupees. So these people paid 200 lakhs, these people paid 50 lakhs. So we divided the 84,240 share in the same proportion. Total payment of these, total capital of these two type of shareholder in XY Limited was 250. So what is 200 divided by 250? That is the percentage of ownership of these type of shareholder in XY, and 50 divided by 250 is the percentage of ownership of these type of shareholder in XY. That's it. So we divided the shares in this manner itself. Yeah, you can clearly say when the payment will be made, full payment will be made, the percentage of ownership will be different. See, 20 lakhs and 10 lakhs is the total number of share. If both of them are fully paid up, they are holding 66.67%, and these are holding 33.33% of the ownership. But we did not divide 84,240 shares in this ratio. Why? Because these people have not paid full amount yet, and that's why we took a different ratio based on the total payment made by them. So 84,240 multiplied by 200 paid by them, this type, in 250. So this much shares to be issued of AB company to these type of shareholders. Then this much shares to be issued of AB company to these type of shareholders. That was the basis of allocation. Next question. Question number 9 and 10. Okay, let's take question number 9. Question number 9 is based on the free cash flows to firm. See, they asked us to calculate the value of WXY Limited using the free cash flows to firm and WACC methodology. One and the same thing. WACC at 15% and the discounting rates are given to you in the question. Now these discounting rates only should be used in exam. Please make sure of this. Then what we did in question number 9, I will tell you. They have given the revenues, COGS, operating expenditure, operating expenses, capital expenditure and depreciation, everything of the current year or the past year, we can say. Based on that, we have to increase the revenue by a certain percentage. And based on that increase in the revenue, everything changes in the question. Cost of goods sold, operating expenditure, capital expenditure, depreciation, working capital, everything will change. Now have a look. In question number 9, they said we have to calculate the value of the company. I will straight away go to the final answer. Working note. See, this is the value of the company, 28,850.51. And how did we calculate that? We calculated the free cash flows of firm for the first 3 years and the terminal value for the from year 4 to onwards. So this is at the end of 3 years itself. Terminal value at the end of year 3 and cash flows for year 3. We discounted at 15% exactly at the 4 decimals which is given in the question, and then we arrived at this point. Now, in order to calculate this, we have to calculate these things also. Okay, so let's go to this point. First of all, free cash flows to firm. This is the main working. This is the 0th year data which is given by question, okay, to you. Based on this, we increase the revenues, I think by 20% every year, 20 or 30%, whatever it is, but every year. Okay, then based on that, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, depreciation, everything was deducted. We came to EBIT. Then EBIT 1 minus tax was taken. We should not deduct interest here because we have to calculate free cash flows to firm. Free cash flows to firm means cash flows to the debt and equity shareholder without any payment of interest to debt holders and equity dividend to equity holders, without making any payment to the debt holders and equity. So we arrived at the EBIT 1 minus tax. Then we calculated the capex. Net capex means this. We calculated the capex and then depreciation. So instead of adding depreciation and deducting capex separately, what we did is we deducted the net amount only. So deducting 172.50 itself means you are adding the depreciation and deducting the capital expenditure. Both the treatment are given in the one single figure. Then change in working capital was deducted. We arrived at the FCFF. If you will remember and if you will see the chart of security valuation, you will find the same formula of FCFF based on EBIT. EBIT 1 minus tax less net capex less net, you will see EBIT 1 minus tax, add back depreciation and deduct capital expenditure. So this is in this, included in this. Then deduct the working capital, change in working capital, you will arrive at the FCFF. You take those FCFF here, right? And the 4th year FCFF. See, after 3, these are perpetual cash flows, 2680.13. This is not the 4th year. These are going to happen every year after 3. So based on that, we will calculate, based on this 2680.13, we will calculate the terminal value, and terminal value is calculated using the Gordon's growth model formula. Free cash flows to the firm, cost of capital of the firm minus growth. That's it. Growth is included in this because we are taking the 4th year figure. We are taking the 4th year figure and we are calculating the value at the end of 3rd year. That means the growth is already included in this. 3 plus growth will give you 4th year. So this way we calculated the terminal value, and then we took this terminal value here, 38,287, discounted it with the 3rd year's present value factor. Please remember these two factors will be same because these two cash flows are at the end of third year, and then we arrived at this value. Simple. Question number 10 is also same. Question number 10 is also same, but little difficult because more data is given in this question. Have a look. There are two periods in this question: high growth period for the first 4 years and stable growth period after 4 years. So we calculated, because the different data is given, we calculated the cost of equity for high growth period and cost of equity for stable growth period. So for the first 4 years the equity cost will be this, and for the last for all the years after 4 the cost of equity will be this. Okay, value of the equity can be calculated using FCFE, which is discounted at cost of equity. Value of the firm can be calculated based on FCFF, which is discounted at cost of capital. So we have to calculate value of the firm in this question. So we need to calculate the WACC. WACC is nothing but the weighted average of the cost of equity and cost of debt after tax. We did the same thing. For high growth period, we calculated the overall cost of capital to 13%, and for stable growth period, means after 4 years, the cost of capital becomes 12%. Why these two are calculated? It's very simple. If you discount any cash flows in the high growth period, if you take any cash flows through high growth period, you should discount it by 13%. If you take any cash flow through stable growth period, you should discount it at 12%. Then comes the cash flow calculation of the FCFF. It is very simple and it is similar. Revenue, EBIT 1 minus tax, then capex net of depreciation, then change in working capital, and then FCFF. It is the same as we did in the previous question, right? Then we calculated the capex net of depreciation similar to the previous question, then also the change in working capital similar to the previous question. Then calculation of the terminal value, 4th year value based on the 5th year cash flows. In the previous question it was 3rd year terminal value based on the 4th year cash flows. So growth is included in that, overall cost of capital, and that is the terminal value. Now calculate the value of the firm. Value of the firm is simple. Take the 4-year cash flows, terminal value, discount with the 13% rate, because all these cash flows are going through the first 4 years. And if you will remember, after 4 years, all these cash flows are going through the stable period. That's why discounted cost of capital of 12% was taken here. But once you calculated this, now this 18,766 will go back from 4th year, 3rd year to 2nd year and 1 year, which is high growth period. So you should discount it with high growth as well. Okay, that's it. See, these are the first 4 year, and then this. These are the first 4 cash flows, and then this terminal value. So this 18,766, when it was in this period, we discounted it with 12%. But now this 18,766 will go through this period, which is high growth period. We will discount it at 13%. Proper note of the same was given in this. Then comes question number 11. Yeah. Question number 11 was of a company before merger and after merger. Cash flows of the Yes Limited before merger was given, and cash flows of the Yes Limited again after merger was given. And we were asked to calculate the value of Yes Limited before and after merger. What should we do? Cash flows are given, so discount all the cash flows. That's the only answer. See, we did the same thing here as well. Before merger, after merger, cash flows, present value, cash flows, present value, discounting rate was same for all. First 5 years cash flows was given, were given in the question itself. Terminal value also, we calculated the terminal value based on the 5th year cash flows. 6th year cash flows, sorry. See, terminal value at the end of year 5 will be cash flows of 6th year, and cash flows of 6th year is nothing but cash flows of 5th year plus growth. So cost of capital, and these are the terminal values. Same formula as we used in the previous 2 questions. And this is also same as we used in the previous 2 questions. The only difference is 1 more year has been added. 5 years plus terminal value, the discounting factor is same, 0.497, 0.497 here. And these are the value of the Yes Limited before and after merger. Okay. Then the second question was value of the acquisition. Means earlier your value was this, and now your value has become 5309. So how much total value has increased? Difference in the value of the company due to acquisition is the difference between this and this, which is 2599. Then one more question was asked by the question that due to this merger, what is the benefit to the shareholders of Yes Limited. Now have a look. It was Yes Limited, it was No Limited. In the question it was given that before merger the number of share of both the companies were same, but how much it was not given. So we assumed 2020. It was same now, so assume anything. Okay. So these are the shareholders of Yes Limited, these are the shareholders of No Limited. Now both of them will get merged in a new company which is called as Yes Limited after merger. Okay. Now Yes Limited after merger will also have a shareholder. In the question it was given that in this company these people will be same, and in this company these people will get half the shares of what they had in No Limited. So if they had 20 they will get 10, and they had 20 and they will also have 20. So these number of shares are same. Yes Limited's number of shares are same in after merger company, but No Limited's number of share have been reduced to 10. Now in this company, in the new company, Yes Limited shareholders hold 20 lakhs shares out of 30, 20 plus 10, and No Limited shareholders hold 10 lakhs only. So basically speaking, the value, basically speaking, 2/3 is the ownership of Yes Limited's old shareholder in after merger Yes Limited. The question was, what is the gain to the shareholder of Yes Limited due to merger? And it is very simple. Value of the Yes Limited shareholder in before merger company was this much, 2708.92. See, 2708.92. But value of the same shareholder in after merger company, only Yes Limited shareholder is 2/3, because this is the total value of the company which includes No Limited shareholders ownership as well. So we took the 2/3 part only, because 2/3 is the ownership of Yes Limited's previous shareholder. So this is the value of the same shareholders, and this is the previous value before merger, this is after merger, this is the gain to those shareholders. Simple. Question number 12, one of the biggest question. Okay, but again they are asking to calculate the same thing, value of the firm and value of equity. Have a look. What was given to you in the question? They gave you the revenues, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sales revenue. Then summarized balance sheet, fixed assets, current assets, balance 3, bonds, equity. Okay. Then they told something about the variable expenses, advertisement expenses, fixed operating expenses. Then they said that the depreciation will be 15%, and then at the end of 8 years, these are the capex figures. For all the 8 years, these are the capex figures. Investment in working capital is at 20% of the revenue. Then the tax rate is 30%, equity cost is 16%. The free cash flows of the firm is expected to grow at 5% per annum after 8 years. So this is the growth rate after 5 years. This will help you to calculate the terminal value. They have asked you to calculate value of the firm and value of the equity. What we did, see, value of the firm minus value of the equity debt will be the value of equity. Okay, so first we will have to calculate value of the firm, and rest of the procedure is simple. So value of the firm will be discounted. What are we going to discount? FCFF. If we want to calculate value of the firm, take the cash flows of the firm and discount it at the firm discount rate, means KO. So FCFF, how to calculate FCFF? If you will see the security valuation chart, you will see the formula of FCFF. EBIT 1 minus tax, add back depreciation, deduct capex, and then deduct change in working capital. Till the previous question, what we have done is we took the capex net of depreciation, and now we are going to do capex net of working capital. This capex net of working capital in this question. The answer is same. If you do it this way, now the depreciation, capex, and change in working capital, the answer will still be the same. Now we will arrive at the FCFF, then we'll calculate the cost of capital. We have the cost of capital in the third working, so divide FCFF, discount FCFF with the cost of capital, you will get value of the firm, and then deduct the debt value, you will get value of the equity. Simple. Have a look. This is the calculation of the depreciation. Simple. Opening fixed assets was given to you, addition, then this becomes total, and on that 15% becomes the depreciation. After deducting this 2.73 from the total fixed asset, the balance is closing fixed assets, which will become opening fixed assets, and all the procedure will be repeated. Okay, then based on that we calculated the additional capital required for capex and working capital together. we calculated this together. So we took all the 8 years, then we took opening current assets. So we already had a 3 crore rupees in our balance, $3 million, sorry, $3 million in our current assets. We wanted to buy the capital, we wanted to expend around $0.50 million. I will only say 3 and 0.5 now. So we wanted to make an expenditure of 0.50. We'll take that money from the cash account in the current assets. The balance in the current assets will be 2.50, but we have to maintain a balance of 20% of the revenue, which becomes 1.60. We already have a higher balance than what is required, and hence no additional investment is required in the first year. So this balance, which was higher, will be carried forward to the next year because we already have used this much of the capex. So 2.50, then we need capex of 0.80. We will use the cash from this current assets. The balance in the current assets will be 1.70, but 20% of the revenue says that the balance in the current asset should be 2. So it is the current balance, but the balance should be this. That means we have to invest this much in the current assets so that the balance will become 2, which will be the opening of the next year. 2 is required as a capex. So there is no balance in the current asset, but the balance required is 3. So invest 3, and this process will continue for all the 8 years. Next working was WSAC working. Simple, 16% into 12 by 20. 12 is the equity, divided by total is the capital. And then cost of debt is 12%, 1 minus 30% tax rate into 8 by 20 is the weightage. So this is 12.96%. What institute has made a mistake is they rounded it up to 13% and discounted it with 13%, whereas you should only take 12.96% also in the exam. Then comes the calculation of the free cash flows to firm. Free cash flows to firm. See, simple and the same process. Revenue, deduct all the expenses and depreciation. You will get EBIT. EBIT 1 minus tax. Because you are calculating free cash flows to firm, there is no need for the interest deduction. Then you will add back depreciation and then deduct capex and then deduct working capital. So this deduction of capex and working capital is included in the one single figure here. Nice. We arrived at the FCFF, discounted it with 12.96%. Then this is the present value of the first 8 year. But that is not enough. We have the future also after 8 years. So we'll calculate the terminal value at the end of 8th year by taking the free cash flows of the firm for the 9th year. So 9th year free cash flows can be calculated by adding growth in the 8th year's cash flows. So this is the firm's cash flows, hence cost of capital will be taken. So this is going to be the terminal value. Okay. But let's calculate the present value of the terminal value also. This is at the end of 8th year. No? Take it to 0th year by discounting it with the 8th year factor. And this is your final answer. Value of the firm will be the future cash flows from 1 to 8, this one, and the terminal value, this one. All these cash flows includes all the futures of the future of the company. So the value of the firm was $51.15 million. Then debt was $8 million given in the question. We arrived at value of the equity. That's it. Simple. These two were asked in the question. Question number 13. Yeah, question number 13 again is of the similar nature, but institute's answer is totally wrong of question number 13. Please focus on this. Again, they are asking us to calculate the same thing. See, estimate the value of the company. So there were some confusion in this question that whether they are asking us to use the FCFE approach or FCFF approach. We calculated the value of the company using both the approach. First we calculated FCFE. So if you take FCFE, then you will discount it with cost of equity. So when you have to calculate FCFE means cash flows only for equity, and hence you can clearly see EBIT minus interest has been done here, because we are not required to keep the balance of debt holders also. Pay out to the debt holders and the balance will be only for equity. EBT, then deducted tax, EAT, and based on that we calculated the tax rate also, 36%. Change in working capital was 8% of the revenue, and it will grow year on year by 8%, so we added growth. So first year it was 3.52. See, change in working capital, the growth in the working capital was 8%. First year working capital was 44. Next year it will increase by 8%, and then 8%, 8%, 8%, 8%. So these are going to be the change for the next 4-5 years. This is free cash flows to equity for the first 5 years. EBIT, deduct interest. When you have to calculate FCFF, you don't deduct the interest, but when it is the time for FCFE, you have to deduct the interest, EBT, EAT, Then the same process, change in working capital deducted. Debt repayment, if there is any payment to the debt holders, we will deduct that. So interest was the payment to debt holders, we deducted. There is a repayment to the debt holders at the end, we deducted. We arrived at FCFE. Since it is equity cash flows, we will discount it at equity rate. Present value 2010 to 14 this much, total present value is this much, simple. But this is not just enough. After 2014 there will be some terminal value. So future values from 2015 is given in the question 240.336. This is already given in the question, and we have assumed this as free cash flows to equity because we are following free cash flows to equity approach, hence divided it with cost of equity. So this becomes 1144 lakhs. Now value of the equity is simple. First 4 years, 5 years present value of cash flows, and then the terminal value, the present value of the terminal value, and this becomes the value of the equity. First answer. Since this is the value of the equity, we have to calculate the per share price. So take this in the numerator and number of share in the denominator, you will get per share value of 13.78. Simple. Actual market price is 66 given in the question. Theoretical market price came down to 13.78, and by this we can clearly say that in the market the share price is too much. It should be around 13 rupees, 14 rupees, but it is in the market at 66 rupees, and that's why the shares are overvalued. But since the question was incomplete, was not clear, we used the FCFF approach also, and in that we need WACC. We calculated WACC of cost of capital 13.54%, then cost of debt was calculated as 11.28%. The debt amount divided by 1934, the debt value. So this is the interest amount that we used to pay every year. Okay, this was required for the purpose of cost of capital. Here debt 11.28 less tax. Good. Then FCFF, and yeah, now you can clearly see that we have not deducted interest because we are calculating FCFF. EBIT 1 minus tax, change in working capital. Why we have not added the depreciation and capex? Because it is clearly written in the question that capital expenditure 234.40, depreciation 234.40. Again, the capital expenditure is expected to be equally offset by depreciation in future. That means both the amounts will be same, hence no impact. Hence there is no point in taking depreciation, add back depreciation and changing or deducting the capital expenditure. Okay. Since you are discounting the free cash flows to firm, the cost at which you will be discounting should also be the cost of firm, that is cost of capital. Present value, total value for the first 5 years, and then the terminal value. Assuming that 240.336 now is FCFF, and based on that we calculated this 1689 as the terminal value, present value. So this is the first 5 years value, and this is the terminal values, present value, and the market value of the firm becomes 2351.85. We have to calculate value of equity, so deduct the debt. 1934 is the balance, the total debt. Value of the equity becomes 417. Number of share is 75. When you divide, the theoretical market price comes down to 5.57. It was 13 point something in the previous part. Again the same decision, actual market price is this much, theoretical market price is this much, shares are overvalued because it is in the market. Okay, come down to question number 14. Question number 14 is all about management buyout. There is one personal division, computer division in the company, which the company wants to sell off to the management itself, and management wants to invest in this division, but management wants fund. Management is ready to invest in the company. But they don't have enough fund. See, this is the company who wants to sell their PC division at 265 crore. Okay, management is ready. Management is Mr. Smith, who is ready to invest 60 crores in this company, but the balance 205 crore will be invested by the venture capitalist, an investor. And how they are investing 205 crore? They are bringing in equity of 22.50 crore, debentures of 22.50 crore, and a loan of 160 crores. Okay, now this will be paid equally, 22.50 every year for 6 years, and loan will be paid at one go after 8 years, I think. Okay, since this is paid equally, debenture repayment, we calculated the debenture repayment schedule. So this is a repayment schedule. Installment came down to 5.016. So what we did is, opening was 22.50, interest for the entire year became this much, 2.025, installment made is this, principal is this, closing value is this, which will become opening, and then we calculate the entire repayment schedule. Why? Because we wanted an interest amount separately. Okay, now See, this is the year 1, 2, 3, 4. We took the EBIT. Then we deducted the interest on debt and interest on loan. Interest on loan is same for every year because the principal payment is made at the end in one go. Okay. But interest on debt is changing every year and it is reducing. Why? Because we are making the principal repayment every year in case of interest on debt. EBT, earning before tax. EAT, earning after tax. Out of this EAT, there is no preference dividend. So this is solely for the equity shareholder. Out of this, we paid dividend of 12.50%. Then the balance was 87.50% retained, which was carried forward to the next year in reserves and surplus in the balance sheet. So this process kept on going, and the total shareholder fund, this is reserves and surplus, and this is equity. This is reserves and surplus. See, you can see the reserves and surplus is increasing and it has become 112.28. Equity is 82.50 crore from the first year till the last, means fourth, and the shareholders fund is this. So we invested 82.50 at time 0 in equity and it has become 194.78 along with the reserves and surplus. So what we did is we calculated the growth rate, at which rate 82.50 became 194.78. So we used this method of dirty power and then we calculated this rate of 23.96%. Means this is the rate at which equity has grown every year. Okay, or grew every year. Now in the question they clearly said that equity share will grow by 20% at least, and this has been proved that the growth rate in equity fund is more than 20%. Good. There was another question that venture capitalist was demanding 18 shares for one warrant, whereas Mr. Smith was ready to give only 10 shares for one warrant. And question asks you that whether 18 shares for one warrant is feasible option or Mr. Smith should accept this offer or not. So see, what happens if we give 18 shares to the venture capitalist after 4 years? After 4 years, the holding of equity will be Mr. Smith will be holding 6 crore shares in the company and venture capitalist existing holding is 2.25 crore, and after conversion of the debt of 22.50 into 18 shares, he will get 4.05 crore extra, and the total holding of venture capital will be 6.3, which will be more than Mr. Smith, and this will not be acceptable to Mr. Smith, because if this happens, you can clearly see the controlling power, okay, will be in the hands of venture capitalist and not Smith. So what is that we have written? If this deal of 18 share is agreed, then Mr. Smith will lose the control on company as venture capitalist will be holding more than 50% equity. Hence, Mr. Smith should not agree to it and should try to negotiate a deal where he can continue to hold majority of the share. Obviously, Mr. Smith will never want to lose the control on the company, and that's why he should be holding more than 50% if there are only two parties. Then this was all about the valuation, and then we started with the economic value added concept, on which there are lots of questions. Have a look. There are two concepts, economic value added and market value added. The other name to the economic value added is the economic profit also. Okay, we discussed this concept that let's say there is a company, there is a cost of equity, cost of debt, and these people have invested 300 and 100 lakhs rupees in the company. With this, the company made sales of this, cost of this, EBIT, interest, EBT, tax, EAT, and all of these things. So what is the return required by the investor is the weighted average of 10 and 8% on 400. So it was 8.5% on 400, means the return required by the investor was 34 crore, and the company earned for them. How much is the return earned by the company after tax for equity and debt is called as net operating profit after tax. Only profit after tax is the earnings for equity. But if you want to calculate earnings for equity and debt after tax, so you should take NOPAT. NOPAT means EBIT 1 minus tax before making any payment of interest to the debt holders. So 61 minus 0.50 was 30 crore after tax. This is what they earned, the company earned for these people. So EVA is nothing but what was expected by the by the stakeholders and what was earned by the company for them. We expected 34 crores and company earned only 30 crores. and the EVA is negative 4. It is not a good sign. It is a bad sign. EVA should be positive. So this is the formula. NOPAT, net operating profit after tax minus capital charge. NOPAT is nothing but EBIT 1 minus tax minus WACC into capital investment is the capital charge. Okay. Yeah, you will find a confusion in some places that the formula for NOPAT is EAT plus interest, which is a wrong formula. I will tell you why. Here, earning after tax, this 26 is after tax figure and 8 interest is before tax figure. So basically you are adding after tax figure with the before tax profit. This is the profit to the debt holders. This is a profit to the equity holders. This 26 is the after tax profit of equity holders and 8 is the before tax profit of debt holders. So if you are adding these two, you cannot say 34 is totally after tax. It is not. 8 is not after tax. So you cannot say it as operating profit after tax. You cannot call that because the tax is not deducted from 8. Whereas the original and the true formula of NOPAT is this: EBIT 1 minus tax 60, 1 minus 0.50 30. In this, interest is also included, everything is included, and we are deducting the tax from it 30. Obviously, if you can deduct 8, 1 minus 3, 30%, 30 or no, so 50%, then it will also be 30, and then it can be called as NOPAT. NOPAT can be EAT plus interest minus tax on interest. Understand this. NOPAT is a profitability measure in which a company's profit is calculated excluding the effect of leverage by assuming that the company does not have any debt in its capital. This is assumption, and in turn ignores the interest payment and the tax advantage. Ignores the tax advantage which companies get by issuing the debt in their capital. Market value added is very simple: excess of the market value of investors over book value. So market value is market price multiplied by number of share minus book value. So let's say market price is 10, number of share is 7 crore. So total market value is 700 crore, book value is 500 crore, total assets minus liabilities. Market value added will be 200 crore. Based on that, we calculated all the question from question 15 to question 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 and 23. I am not discussing it because the formula and everything is used in that. Simply you can get it. Then comes question number 24. Means I don't think so that if there is any need to discuss this EVA questions, because it's very simple. Only small adjustments are there. Okay. So I'm straight away going to question number 24. Yeah. Now the situation in this question 24, you can pause it and you can read the question if you want. Total holding is 100%. Okay. Promoters holding is 84% and free float holding will be the balance, means 16%. Number of shares given by the promoters, held by the promoters is 63 lakhs. And if 63 lakhs is 84%, that means 100% is 75. You can divide 63 divided by 84. And that means the balance 12 lakh shares will be held by the other shareholders. Market capitalization of free float is given as 1920 lakhs. Now we have to calculate the total number of shares. We started the answer from here. Shares with the promoter divided by promoters holding will give you 75 lakh. 63 divided by 84%. Now free float number of shares is 12 lakh because 75 is total, 63 is held by the promoters, free float holding is 12 lakhs. Then market price is very simple. The market capitalization of free float and the number of share of free float will give you the market price. Okay. Then EPS is very simple. Market profit after tax divided by number of share will give you EPS. Or you can calculate EPS as profit market price divided by P ratio if P ratio is given. Then P ratio, they asked us to calculate the P ratio first thing. So we will calculate the P ratio as market price divided by EPS. EPS is 6.4, market price is 160, the P ratio will be 25. Then they said that, SEBI said that the promoters need to bring down their holding from 84% to 75%. And they can do it by selling their shares, or they can do it by issuing the bonus shares to the minority shareholder. Promoters of this company decided to go for the bonus issue. entire bonus will be given to the minority shareholder, that so that automatically our holding will bring down to 75%. So we do not want to sell a single share. 63 was there earlier, 63 will be held by the promoters now also. The total will increase. So if 63 is assumed to be 75%, then the total number of shares in the company should be 84 lakhs. That, and the existing number of share in the company is 75. That means the new share that we have to issue is 9 lakhs. And the entire 9 lakh shares will be given to those shareholders who are holding 12 lakh shares. So the ratio is 9:12. That means 3:4. That means all the minority shareholders who are holding 4 shares will be given 3 as a bonus. So after bonus issue, what will happen? 63 will be held by promoters, minority will hold 21, the total will be 84. 75%, 25%, 100%. Okay. Total market value is 1200 lakhs. See, by issuing the bonus, nothing changes. The market value does not changes because there is no cash inflow or outflow in the company. Market value will still remain same. Market price will change. So market value before bonus issue and after bonus issue will be 1200 lakhs only. Market price will change. Before bonus issue is 12,000 divided by 75, and after bonus issue is 12,000 divided by 84. This is free float market cap. They asked us in the fourth part to calculate free float market. That is very simple. Market price after the bonus issue multiplied by number of shares. Total market price after the bonus issue is 142.86, which was calculated here, and the total number of shares of free float was 21. So 3000 lakh is the free float market capitalization, or else you can do it in this manner. Simple way is 12,000 is the total value, 25% is their holding, 3000. Simple. Okay, question number 25 and 26 are one and the same, and they were thinking about some kind of a sales strategy, that if we implement a sales strategy for the next 4 years, there will be a certain growth in the sales. So what we did, present value of the free cash flows to the firm, we calculated this. The answer to this question, the main requirement of this question is whether this strategy is viable. How did we answer this question? By calculating the value of the company after adopting this strategy and value of the company before this strategy. If after adopting this strategy the answer is more, the value is higher, then the strategy is viable. Otherwise it is not. So we took the figures of, this is question number 25. Okay, so we took the revenue 40,000, then we increased it by the given percentage. We increased the earning after tax, which was 10.50% of this. Depreciation added back, capex deducted, working capital deducted. You remember all these are same. EBIT 1 minus tax or EAT, here one and the same thing. Add back depreciation, deduct capex, change in working capital, this will be FCFF. Okay, interest is not deducted here because we are calculating FCFF. Then discount it with the 15%, and this is the first 4 years present value. Then we will calculate the terminal value as well. Terminal value is at the end of 4th year will be the 5th year cash flows divided by cost of capital. This is the terminal value, and this is the present value of the terminal value. So take all those figures, the first 4 years figures, and then the terminal value, and this is the company's value with strategy. And without strategy, ignore everything, take the profit after tax given in the question. This will become the free cash flows to the firm. Capitalize it perpetually. Terminal value from the very beginning, and this will give you 28,000. That means the conclusion is new sales strategy is viable as the value is more of the company. 27 was all about chop shop approach. See, chop shop approach is not a new concept. It is very simple. Chop shop means you calculate the value of the company based on small basis. In this question, the value of the business was calculated based on the capitalization method, and not just earnings were capitalized, everything was capitalized. Assets were capitalized, earnings were capitalized, and sales were also capitalized. Based on these 3 bases, we calculated 3 values of the business, and based on these three values of the business, we calculated the average value of the business, and that's it. So calculate value of the business by capitalizing sales, assets, and operating income. What we did is this. See, based on sales, we took the segment, sales, factor, and divided, capitalized. because this is the basic formula, no? Value of the business is earnings divided by factor. So factor will go on that side, value will come on this side, so it will be capitalization. Value means the capitalization. So earnings divided by capitalization is this. So if you have to calculate capitalization, see, if you have to calculate the capitalization, earnings will be in the numerator, or sales will be in the numerator, or assets will be in the numerator, divided by the factor. That's what we did. Sales in the numerator divided by the factor, capitalized value. Assets in the numerator divided by factor, capitalized value, and the same thing. So we took all these three values, divided by 3 means average out. This is going to be the value of business. Simple. Now sometimes what will happen, they will give you a factor in a reverse manner. In this formula, see, factor on that side, value of the business on this side. So what they will give you in the question is earnings divided by capitalization. If they give you earnings divided by capitalization, then this will become the formula. So they may trick you sometimes. It's not always, see, what I want to say is it's not always 75,000 divided by 0.11. Sometimes the factor will be 1 divided by 0.11. At that time 75,000 multiplied by 1 divided by 0.11, whatever the factor is, should be done. It will give you the same answer. So in this question we are dividing. Sometimes it will be for multiplication also. And how to understand and realize that? Just follow this formula. Value of the business is earnings divided by factor. So if you have been given with earnings divided by valuation or capitalization, then you will divide. If you have been given with capitalization divided by earnings, then you will multiply. Question number 28 was very simple. They asked us to calculate the value of the business on various topics. So on the basis of P ratio, the value of the company was P ratio multiplied by profit, 9 into 50. See, we calculate the market price based on P ratio into EPS. So this gives you the market price of one share, but we need market value of the company. So take the profit of the company. Dividend yield, if you remember, the same concept was taught by me in bond valuation chapter. Current yield is equal to interest by market price, but this is for the bond value. What is for the market price? For market price, it will be dividend divided by current yield. For bond, it is interest divided by current yield. For equity, it will be dividend divided by current yield. So dividend is 40, current yield is 0.06, the value of the company is 666.66. Then dividend growth model is, everyone is familiar about this dividend growth model. Since you have to calculate the value of the company, take the entire dividend, 40 crores. It will give you 520 crores. Book value to already given, and net realizable value is the book value adjusted with these two figures, net realizable value. So these are all the questions. Then comes the relative valuation method. Relative valuation concept is very simple. I will tell you. First of all, relative valuation means you are comparing your company with the other companies based on different factors or different multiples. One of the basic multiple is the price, and then we took the price, market price of four different companies. Let's say ABCD. Market price of all the 4 companies has been taken. Then first we'll take EPS of all the 4 companies, and based on market price divided by EPS, we calculated PE ratio. So PE ratio of all these companies are there. Now, how we are going to use this? What is relative valuation? Now you are comparing your company's PE with other companies' PE. So you can clearly see what is the meaning of 5 PE, 12 PE, 10 PE and 4 PE. It means that how much we are paying for 1 rupees of EPS. If you want to earn 1 rupees of earning in this company, you will have to pay 5 rupees in the market price. You will have to pay 12 rupees as a market price for the same rupees 1 earning. So this company is best. The company with low PE ratio is the best because you have to pay only 4 rupees, invest only 4 rupees for 1 rupee of the earning. Simple. Who wants to pay more for the same earning? Nobody. So we would prefer less payment for the same earning. Then the next multiple is PE ratio divided by growth. So price earning, and I will write down growth. See, P ratio divided by growth. So this is the P ratio. Let's say the growth is 5% of this company. So P by growth is 1. Then P ratio of the second company was 12. Let's say the growth is 6% of this company every year. P by growth is 2. 12 by 6. Don't make it percentage. Take the absolute number. So 2. And such this way we calculated the P by growth multiple of all the 4 companies. And what is the interpretation of is how much we are paying for 1% growth in the company. It means you have to pay 1 rupees for 1% growth, because you are paying 5 rupees for 5% growth. So 1 rupees for 1% growth, 2 rupees for 1% growth, 2.5 rupees for 1% growth, and 0.4 rupees for 1% growth. So which is better? 0.4, because you have to pay less for the same percentage of growth. Then comes the price to book value multiple. This is another method. Take the market price divided by book value, it will come to 4. That means for every 1 rupees of the book value, you will have to invest 4 rupees in market. Market price to sales ratio, P by S. Market price divided by sales. That means how much we are paying to generate 1 rupees in sales of this company. So you are paying 20 paisa to generate 1 rupees of sales in this company. 50 paisa for the same sales, 30 paisa for the same sales, 25 paisa for the same sales. Obviously you will prefer to go with the least amount of investment for the same sales. So this is how you compare. When you do the comparison, this is called as relative valuation. Simple concept. And the last concept in your syllabus of corporate valuation is shareholders value analysis, which is just a new concept, but which is just the simple concept, but you have already gone through this concept, and let me tell you how. See, what are the steps involved in shareholder value analysis, and try to remember if we have followed these steps in any of the questions. First, arrive at the future cash flows by using a judicious mix of the value drivers. That means the whatever the data given. So first arrive at the future cash flows. We have solved question where we arrived at the future cash flows. Then we discounted the future cash flows with the WACC. Remember? Then we calculated the terminal value to the present value compared in this step. We did this. And then we added the market value of the non-core asset. This is the only step that we never did. Then reduce the value of the debt from the result in step D to arrive at the value of the equity. We also did the last step. Value of the firm minus debt is equal to equity. So this is the last step. And what is non-core assets? Non-core assets, I will tell you. Let's go to the institute's material now for the same. Students Board of Studies Knowledge Portal, final course, strategic financial management, study material, corporate valuation, and I will go directly to that topic. Yeah. See what they are doing. They are following the same steps, arriving at the future cash flows, discounting, then terminal value, non-core assets, and etc. etc. I will show you here. This is the total present value, and see, they are adding investment property at future value, face value, sorry, 35. Less carrying cost, so you will get value of the equity. Now, this is investment property. If I am doing the business of selling video lectures and I have a short-term investment in my balance sheet where I have invested, my company has invested in some equity shares or bonds. So these are some assets which are not related to my business. That is called as non-core asset. Core asset means camera. Core asset means laptop. Core asset means all the vehicle and all that for using for the company. But investment in equity share is a non-core asset. Got it? Investment in land just for the sake of investment is non-core asset. Add those also in the value of equity, because this adds this adds to the value of the equity. That's why they are saying consider these also, because in the above cash flows, if you will remember, nowhere you have taken the impact of investment property because it was non-core, not related to business. All the future cash flows that you have taken to arrive at this total present value was related to business. So that related to business plus this extra asset will be the total value of equity, because at the end of the day it has some value na. So my shareholders of the company will get that investment also at the time of liquidation. So that's why we are adding this investment property. Such non-core asset means not related to directly to business. So that's it. This is how we ended up with the entire corporate valuation revision. I hope you understood everything about this, and in the next lecture we are going to start with the mergers and acquisition chapter. Bye bye for now.